So what I did with these, I put one coat of this paint stripper on one side, and I let it sit about 15 minutes, and then I turned these over. I put another coat on the other side, so that would be the first coat for the other side, and I let it sit about 10 minutes, and then I put a second coat on this side, and now I've got gloves, I've got steel wool and some sandpaper and my dog. So yeah, I'm about to scrape off the paint on this side. Then I'm going to flip them over, put another coat of paint stripper on, let that sit for a while, then do the other side. Then I'm going to clean them up, and then I might do one more coat on each side if I still have a lot of paint on there. Alright, there's a little bit of progress. This is like the 5th or 6th coat I've done. I've used about almost 10 of those things. I'm going to do some more steel wool after this coat, and then I have enough for one more coat. So I'm going to steel wool these sides and then flip them over, do one more coat, some more steel wool, and then I will clean the chemicals off and start in on this sandpaper. This stuff right here is crap. I think I already mentioned that, but it was clogging from the very beginning. I got this at O'Reilly's and it had really good reviews online. But yeah, maybe I just got a bad can, and maybe this paint is just extra strong. But this is supposed to be automotive industrial strength paint stripper, and it's just really slow process. This is the last coat before I do one more hit with the steel wool, and then I'm going to start the sandpaper. Hopefully the sandpaper should be a lot faster. I probably should have just skipped this paint stripper. I watched several reviews on YouTube, and some of them had good results and some of them were just like this where it barely worked. The products that people said worked really good were super expensive, like $45 for a small container. So yeah, probably should have just used sandpaper from the beginning. So I'm done with these for now. I'm gonna blue these. I'm gonna use a gun bluing solution. It's gonna turn it a bluish, brownish, kind of a rustic look, I guess. The longer you leave the bluing on there, the browner it will get. It'll kind of start to rust a little bit. So you can see that I left some of the paint on. I did that intentionally. I could have sanded it down even more. But once I put the bluing solution on there and then clean it and put a clear coat on, I think it'll have kind of a cool industrial type look. So I started with an 80 grit sandpaper right there, and I went to 100 and 150. I didn't use the 200. I would have started with something even a little coarser, because it took quite a while. And now this I did all by hand, and it was not fun. So on this one I'm gonna use a sander for the easy to get to spots. I will say, I bought these sandpaper pads that have like this fabric back so they don't shred up like those cheaper sandpaper pages that I had. So yeah, I highly recommend getting the more expensive stuff. This is a 26-inch fork, but it fits perfectly, even with a tiny bit of room to spare on my 27.5-inch BMX cruiser. So I'm actually going to use this fork on a 27.5-inch bike. And yes, I could take a heavier grit sandpaper and get rid of some of these because this is from a bike, a DK that was made in 2012. I think, I'm not even sure. That's just what I did some internet research, and look how thick this steer tube is. It's got an odd size fork preload bolt. It's 14 millimeters, but I'm going to put a star nut in there the other way through the bottom. And I'm going to push it up, and it's going to brace itself underneath this welded threading here. And then I'm just going to have to get a longer star nut bolt. Alright, I got my gun bluing solution right there. Got some cotton balls. Got my bars and the fork. And I'm going to go to town on this. Alright, just finished. Put 2 coats on. And when you're putting it on, it looks really cool. It looks nice and uniform and just looks really cool. But in the videos that I've seen where people use this stuff, look just like this. So according to one video I watched, they said the shorter you keep it on, the more blue it will look. But the guy who did his bike frame, who I followed most of his steps, there's going to be a link in the description. He said in the comments that he let his sit overnight and his turned a little bit more brown. He said probably because it started to rust a tiny little bit, but it doesn't look like rust. It just looks like a really cool brown, like patina or something. So I'm going to let these sit overnight. Finally starting to like the look of this. I used this blackening patina for steel. It didn't work very good. Then I used this. This made it darker. And after I put this on there, I let it sit for about 2 weeks and it rusted. It still wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. So I got this matte black paint today. I just put on a really light coat, and then it was kind of sticky and a little bit splotchy. And so I took this and just a t-shirt and I've been buffing it, and it's starting to look really good. I'm going to clean it off and put a matte clear coat on it. Alright, so I was just about to edit my video on the forks and bars, and I realized I didn't have kind of a final shot of what they ended up, how they looked when they're done. So I've been riding this bike now for about 2 weeks, and I did not clean it off for this video, so you're gonna see some dirt and whatnot. So a lot of you from a distance are probably looking at these and thinking, he should have left them black how they were to begin with. But these bars, these forks were really beat up. There were scratches all over them. And I didn't take a video before I started the paint removal process, which I should have done. And these were also scratched up, and they had been repainted once. And these areas up here where the brakes were at, the brake levers, they were all, since they had been repainted and someone had changed the brakes several times, the paint was all jacked up. So even though it didn't turn out kind of how I wanted, I'm really happy with the end result. And I'll get some close-up shots. So from a distance, they just kind of look black. But when you look up close, you'll see some slight, trying to get it to focus. It's so bright out here. You can see some slight color coming through where like the rust was at, like right there. I don't know if you can even see that. I can't tell on my phone screen. It's not focusing on these bars for some reason. I keep tapping right on them. It almost has kind of a bronze look in certain areas, and I'm not a fan of bronze, but this actually looks really cool. It almost looks kind of like rust a little bit. And I am aware that my camera's not focusing very well, and I'm sorry about that. It's kind of a crappy end to this video, but all I have is my phone, so I don't have anything better to film with. And then it's the same on the forks. There's certain areas where color shows through. I don't know if you can see that. I think it looks cool. Someone who would want like a, perfect paint job. Obviously, this isn't the thing for you. You can see right there is a place I sanded. When I did a final buffing, I used a magic eraser pad, those thin white pads, and I just took that off just with a magic eraser pad because it was really shiny. I'd put a little bit too much clear coat on right here, but I actually kind of think that looks cool, and that will probably rust at some point a little bit, which is fine with me. But yeah, I'm really happy with how they came out after all that work.